Hello, my name is Marta Mezzanzanica, and I'm a senior researcher at the National Center for Social Research, where I work in the longitudinal surveys team and mostly focus on the delivery of the NatSem panel, which is a probability-based panel. Today, I'll be presenting some findings from an experiment we ran at the recruitment stage of the NatSem panel to explore the impact of different recruitment approaches on recruitment and participation rates. I will start off with a bit of background on probability-based panels. I will also give a little bit of information about the NatSem panel, outlining how the recruitment works. I'll then move on to describing the design of the experiment and the impact it had. Finally, I'll sum up what I think the key takeaways are. So first, on the background. Probability-based online panels provide a high-quality alternative to non-probability surveys when high-quality data is important, but face-to-face fieldwork is too slow or expensive. In fact, fieldwork can be conducted quicker and at lower cost, as the majority of the participants complete the survey online, and the probability sampling approach ensures high-quality data. The fundamental requirement here is that every member of the population must have an equal and known chance of being invited to join the panel, and later, once they are members of the panel, of being invited to do a panel survey. As of the sample frame, researchers can draw new fresh samples and recruit participants from there, but this is a very expensive solution, or can draw on an already existing representative surveys so that the high cost of the setup of a probability sample can be largely absorbed by the current survey. This latter approach is also known as piggybacking recruitment. Regardless of the sample frame's type and quality, there will always be people unwilling or unable to take part in surveys though, and this risks introducing bias. Non-response bias occurs when subjects who refuse to take part in a study are systematically different from those who participate. Non-response for probability-based panels can occur at 4 stages in the process. So first, we have recruitment non-response, which is the refusal at the survey used for recruitment. Then we have panel non-response, which is a refusal to join the panel. Then we have survey non-response, which happens every time a panel member decides not to take part in a specific survey they are invited to. And finally, we have attrition, which is the dropout of the initially cooperative sample members. The product of the various stages at which non-response occurs gives the overall panel response rate, which is used as quality indicator of a probability-based panel. My presentation today focuses on the challenges that come earlier in the process, the recruitment stage, which is a key step for ensuring a representative pool of panelists. So why is it so key? Evidence suggests the majority of non-response takes place at the initial recruitment survey, which is when sample-based background information is most limited. Thus, a low recruitment rate risks introducing bias and limits what subsequent adjustments, such as weighting modeling to minimize non-response, can achieve. Around 20,000 people are part of the NatSem panel, which is a probability-based online panel in the UK. But how did we recruit them? So the NatSem panel receives annual batches of fresh samples from various probability-based surveys, such as the British and Scottish social aptitude surveys. Recruitment is usually carried out by face-to-face interviewers who, at the end of the recruitment survey, ask participants whether they want to join the panel. So recruitment usually relies on interviewers being able to talk to people and persuade them to join. In 2020, following the COVID-19 outbreak, face-to-face mode was no longer an option. So the British Social Aptitude Survey used a push-to-web approach. This means that trained and experienced interviewers were no longer around to answer questions that potential panel member might have had. This context raises concern on both ethical implication and the effectiveness of the questions. So to ensure that consent was informed, we added some basic text on key features of the study in the question stem, so that it was clearer what people were consenting to. But was that enough? What if people wanted to know more, and how should additional, more comprehensive pieces of information be presented? And also, is it clear to them that we are asking something different? So there is no interviewer there that can make clear that there is a transition from the main survey to the recruitment one. And then again, on the effectiveness of questions, we were worried about interviewers not being there to establish a dialogue with respondents and convince them in taking part. So the position of the recruitment questions was even more important in this context, and we also wonder how to design questions so that a sort of dialogue is established. To help us answer these questions, we implemented 2 split sample experiments in the 2020 Busy Social Activity Survey. Let's have a look at the recruitment and research questions. So we experimented with the position of the recruitment question with respect to an incentive offer, and then also with the way of presenting information and the answer options provided. So on question positioning, when it comes to consent question, the aim is to design a flow whereby anchoring and priming can favor consent. So we wonder, how does the positioning of recruitment question relative to the offer of an incentive affect recruitment and participation rates? As of the presentation of information and answer options, the overall aim is to design an approach that enables the conversion of those respondents who are hesitant. So we wonder, what is the effect on recruitment and participation rates of an approach where information is staggered and participants are allowed to say they are not sure, compared to a more classic approach where all the information is accessible upfront and participants are presenting with a binary yes-no option? Before moving on to results, let's have a look at the actual design of the questions so that you can see what the participants experience. So the first recruitment question was asked of all participants with a few differences depending on the sample split. Everybody was presented basic information on the key features, frequency of the waves, typical interview length, voucher amount. A random half were presented with additional information about joining the panel up front. This info was structured as FAQs and made available in help links. This sample split, in pink on the slide, had to decide straight away whether to join or not, as only the binary yes-no option was available to them. While the other half were presented the basic information only, no help links, but were given the option to ask for more information. So if they asked for more information, we routed them to the second recruitment questions, which was only asked of hesitant respondents. Here, they found help links with more information. They were asked again whether they wanted to join or not, and were still allowed to say they were unsure. As said before, we also experimented with the positioning of the questions. So another random half of respondents were asked if they would like to join the panel immediately before being asked what type of incentive they would like, and the other half were asked immediately after. So on this slide, you can see a summary of the experiment. So whether voucher first or recruitment question first, and whether a recruitment question where only the yes-no option was offered and all the info up front, or 2 recruitment questions with a follow-up approach and the possibility to say I am not sure. Let's have a look at the results, starting with questions positioning. There was no significant difference in the proportion of people agreeing to join the panel or taking part in the first panel survey by the positioning of the recruitment question. Even though we can't detect any definitive indication, the difference is in the expected direction. Both recruitment and participation rates are 1 percentage point higher in the group that was asked to join the panel immediately after the choice of the type of voucher. As of the design of the questions, there is an indication that participants who could say they were not sure were more likely to agree to join the panel. Let's have a closer look. 78% of those presented with all the info up front and forced to take a decision on the spot decided to join the panel, compared to 71% of those who were presented with little information and allowed to say they were unsure and would have liked more info. But this is just a partial picture. We need to also take into account the hesitant people, 11% in total in the not sure and follow-up group, because these were routed to the second question. So of those unsure, 5% said they would like to join, so we converted them within the recruitment survey, and 4% said they were still unsure. This brought to 80% the total recruitment rate in the not sure and follow-up group. So the information staggering and not sure option approach obtained a slightly higher total panel consent rate compared to the binary yes-no in the moment approach. This difference is no longer significant, though, when looking at the proportion that took part in the first survey way. But it is still interesting to notice that a considerable proportion of those unsure, 68%, are still taking part, delaying their final decision of whether to be panel member or not. The fact that for now they are in the panel is very important for us, as it allows us to collect crucial supplementary data that can be used to improve estimates and compensate for non-response and attrition. Moreover, what we are really interested as sample quality indication is the cumulative non-response rate, so the overall non-response rate. So if we look at those who participated at wave 1 of the panel survey, out of all of those who took part in BSA 20, so not only out of those who joined the panel, but out of all of those who took part in BSA 20, we can see that the not sure and follow-up approach once again worked slightly better. Looking to the future and considering BSA 2021 will be pushed to web again, what can we take away from this? As of the position with respect to the incentive presentation, we found a very small positive effect in the assumed direction. Even if the finding isn't particularly surprising or exciting, it isn't empty of meaning because it is a relevant no effect or null finding, which can inform further experiments and or decision on the positioning of consent questions. For the NATSEM panel, we are going to continue positioning the consent question after the offer of the incentive. As of the design of the consent questions, we found positive evidence on the use of an unsure option and on how moving away from a binary in the moment approach might positively affect data collection and the total non-response. For the NATSEM panel, we have decided to continue using the not sure and follow-up approach. We have also decided to make the unsure answer option even more distinct on the screen by changing the order and the layout. So this final slide summarizes the approach we are taking for BSA 21. The voucher question is asked first, followed by 2 recruitment questions, where the unsure option is made prominent on the screen and the information is staggered.